My number 9 favorite album of 2020 is Wire's Mind Hive. 42 years they've been making post punk genius. They released 2 albums this year. The first one way back in January when it was a whole different world. Excellent album. Check it out. They're still just doing their post punk thing and they're doing it well. Wire Mind Hive, my number 9 favorite of this year. Oh, my name is Shaggy. I am the opinionated hippie, and I'm here to rank and review every single Frank Zappa album released while he was alive. And we are currently at number 36, right? That's crazy. Does humor belong in music? Um, yes to the question, no to the album. Anyways, this is the one I referred to a while ago that I had analytically was ranked much higher than this on the list. Like I broke things down by song, by solo, by track, by all that kind of stuff, and this ranked much higher. But every time I came to review it, I just couldn't do it because when I listen to this album, I enjoy it, but I don't ever want to listen to it. It came out in '86. It is essentially the 1984 band's only sort of documented album, complete 1984. It's all live tracks from that tour. It's pretty much the only souvenir from that band. This was a band that was lacking a personality to drive them. I think almost every Frank band, you can say, oh, like once you had the Mothers were the Mothers, right? But after that, you would be like, oh, Flo and Eddie clearly defined the Flo and Eddie era. George Duke and Ruth Underwood clearly helped define what Frank wrote from like 73 on. Terry Bozzio clearly had an influence on what Frank wrote then. Tommy Mars clearly had an influence on what Frank wrote when Mars was in the band. Steve Vai clearly had an influence. Alan Zavad, who is a talented musician of his own right, pretty much came in this band, and Mars had left, so he replaced Mars. Ed Mann had left, so he was kind of playing percussion on his keyboards, replacing Mann. There wasn't horns yet, so he was kind of doing horn stabs every once in a while. But he just didn't have the personality to like define this band. So this was a highly skilled band. Wackerman on drums, Tunis on bass, White and Willis on vocals, Martin on keyboards and vocals, and then Alan Zavad being the all-purpose sort of keyboard player. But it was lacking in personality. And so the band had sort of this like blandness to it, this sort of everything kind of sounds the same quality. Plus, Wackerman's drum set was all electronic, so it sounds very, very, very 80s. So I just don't like the way this band sounds. The album is pretty good. It's got some great tracks on it. It feels like a concert. Frank sequenced it, so it feels like an actual show. Credit to that. One disc, the first thing Frank ever only released on CD when it came out. Sounds great. The solos are phenomenal. Really good solos. But one, they suffer from sounding like the '84 band. And two, they suffer from something Frank did quite a lot in the '80s, in which he would play a song and the song would have this momentum going. And then as soon as they hit the solo section, he would either completely switch gears and start another vamp, or he would just let the band just like stop and kind of blank slate the solo so that momentum was gone. And you feel that on a couple of the solos here. So while the solos gain steam and are worth hearing in and of themselves, they kind of don't feel like they belong in the song. It's just like, oh, the song is here as this framework for a random solo. So, anyways, I don't ever want to listen to it because of that, just because it's the '84 sound that I don't like. But it's a good album. There's some good stuff on it. So, anyways, 10 tracks, starts off with a great Zoodalures. I think the '81 and '82 band brought this song back to life. Frank started playing it, using it as an opening song quite a lot. Great solos, always in all of those. In fact, as I talked about in my last video, one of the Zoodaloo solo from '81 became the truck driver divorce solo on Them or Us. That's how good the quality of these Zoodaloo solos were for '81 and '82. And this one is also a pretty good one. Followed by that is Tinseltown Rebellion, which is Frank being a little too obvious. As the 80s came on, Frank was still writing music that had these random sort of left turns and right turns, and all of a sudden we're doing this musically, and it kind of makes no sense. But it did make sense, and it was predictable. So, like this song, which is about the Sunset Strip and Tinseltown Rebellion and bands, and just kind of a commentary on the music business and Hollywood and all that, it was predictable, and like Frank would make a reference to something, and then the band would play the musical interpretation of whatever he referenced. You know, you take something like Florentine Pogan, which had these really weird, unpredictable turns and twists, where this has those turns and twists, but Frank is like saying vocally what they're then going to do musically, and so it just kind of, I don't know, it was a little cartoonish and a little too theatrical and not quite as musically unpredictable and satisfying. So Tinseltown Rebellion, it's a fun song, kind of silly. Band sounds great. They're able to handle these twists and turns, but it has a very cartoonish feel about it that a lot of Frank's kind of 80s musical songs would have. That's followed by Trouble Every Day. This is the revamped 80s version of the 70s song, a little meteor on the guitar, got a Frank solo, good song. I like the 70s version better, but I enjoy this. But Frank brought it back. I mean, it had not been played since the 74 band, so it was nice to hear that back. Penguin in Bondage is back. Pretty much sounds exactly the same, other than like obvious differences in the band. Nice solo, a longer solo in these 80s versions than there would be in back in the 70s. So it's nice to hear this song back. Hot Plate Heaven at the Green Hotel, a new song that Frank debuted on this tour. This is one of those that has the momentum going and then the stop and play a guitar solo, then just kind of jump back into the song. Really good guitar solo on this. Kind of a fun little song. Not one of Frank's best, but it's not a bad song. That's followed by a What's New in Baltimore with vocals, kind of short. Some secret word usage gets thrown in here, so that's kind of fun. Nice little solo at the end. Good song. Not one of Frank's best. I think the 82 tour and the 81 tour had the best Baltimores, but this is still a pretty good Baltimore. Two really good songs, a cover of a song called Cocksucker's Ball, a nice little cover, and then a WPLJ showing off the vocal abilities of this band. One thing this band could do and could do well was sing. Ray White, Ike Willis, Bobby Martin all on vocals. A lot of the highlights of this band were due to their vocals. This is two little snippets of that. Let's Move to Cleveland, which is okay. It's a 15-minute Let's Move to Cleveland. It's got a drum solo, a keyboard solo, it's got a guitar solo, it's got all the stuff the Clevelands had. It's pretty good. I'm not a fan of drum solos, but I understand why it's here. Frank always giving love to his drummers. But again, there are better Clevelands on this tour. November especially had some amazing Let's Move to Cleveland's in the 84 tour. This one is good, pretty solid, not as ridiculous and out there as some of them would be, but it's still a pretty good listen. And then it closes with a Whipping Post, which I just talked about on the Them or Us one. I like it in the live context. I think it's a great way to end a show. It's a callback to the Montana quote parentheses Whipping Post from the You Can't Do That on Stage Volume 2, which is the best Montana ever and is where the Whipping Post comes from. You should check that out as soon as you're done with this. Got a good solo. I think Dweezil plays the solo on this one. Dweezil would sit in and play a lot of guitar with Frank on the 84 tour and the 88 tour. The best Dweezil outing, other than stuff in 88, which has not yet been released, is his Charlena, which is on You Can't Do That on Stage Volume 3. That is Dweezil at his best, and Frank and Dweezil go at it head-to-head. This is another pretty good one, but not phenomenal. Anyways, it's good, it's solid, but I just don't have a lot of excitement for this album because of the sound. And I think there's better performances of the tracks Frank picked. So, like, I don't know. I know people like this album. It's not a bad album. The playing is phenomenal. The band is really tight. The solos are really good. Like, there's really not a lot to like not like about it, but I just cannot get over the way it sounds. The combination of Wackerman's drum sound and the sounds Zavad and I'm assuming Martin both have on their keyboards are so dated and cheesy, and there's no percussionist, so now they got to do percussion on it, and there's no horns, so they've got to do horn stabs, and it's just there's no Tommy Mars, so there's no Tommy Mars. Anyways, it's a rough outing for me. But I understand why people like this album because the guitar playing is pretty sick. And there's like what, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven really good guitar solos. So that's a good reason to check it out. So I'm just rambling at this point. But yeah, check the album out. It's definitely worth checking out. It's number 36 on my list. Now we're getting to that point where from here on out, it's really good albums with some really bad stuff on it or some weak albums with some great stuff on it. We're not as consistent for these last 18 or so, but still some good stuff. So anyways, check it out. Take care. Have a good day. Be safe. Let me know what you think of this album in the comments below. Subscribe and yada, yada, yada. All right. Take care. I just want to quickly say that the Let's Move to Cleveland solo is actually really, 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 really good. And you should check that out. Yeah, it is.